quite a bit. Quite a bit. So I think that pretty much wraps us up. Hey, do you have any what books would you recommend for the listeners?
I'm glad that you said that. I was going to mention a couple and ask if
I know we mentioned on the first
read them.
I know we mentioned on the first episode on money and banking.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
That's a good that I think that's a little bit more labor intensive, I think. So I think, a lot of times to be honest, I quite often I find reading about money very boring, as much as I like money.
Yeah.
But reading about it can be very dry. And there are Murray Rothbard's treatment on it is pretty intensive. There are some other ones out there. I'd have to send you, maybe I can send you a note.
Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt.
That's one of the best to start with. Absolutely one of the best books, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good.
But from an anarchist perspective, I would suggest starting with the Anarchist Handbook. Michael Malice put it together over the last year or so,
yeah.
and it's essentially it's a collection of
He was talking about
just
that
a spattering of anarchists, like from all sides. Like, so you got to understand, calling myself an anarcho-capitalist, there are a lot of anarchists out there that would say I'm not an anarchist because capitalism is inherently un-anarchistic because it's based on hierarchies, and hierarchies are then therefore
everything is based on hierarchies.
Yeah,
right.
That's tribalism. That's never going to go away.
That's our critique of what we would consider leftist anarchists or anarcho-communists. But
yeah, it's human nature.
But like in here he has people like Bakunin and Berkman and David Friedman, Emmett Goldman, Murray Rothbard, of course. Lysander Spooner, like there's a bunch of, it's a great place to be there. I mean, I think you get a spattering of what would be considered right-wing anarchists, like, well, I guess what I would be considered anarcho-capitalist, and then also like Emmett Goldman, who, emigrated from the Soviet Union into the United States and was summarily kicked out of the country and sent back to the Soviet Union. And
really?
And because she was she was like a fan of, she was a Marxist. She believed in communism, but she didn't believe in the state.
She didn't believe in the state.
Right, which communists
Neither do
inherently, if they believe in their own theory, then they are anti-state. But it's just funny how it never quite gets there. But so when she went back to the Soviets, she was just horrified by what was going on there with Lenin and Stalin and everything. And
I think
she's
that's
an interesting
the story.
read too.
It always turned out that way. It wasn't the way they wanted it.
Yeah. Weird
exactly.
How these things always happen.
There's always somebody that wants power and they're willing to do nasty, horrible things for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the revolution is the next generation's problem, not right now. I mean, we now they have to centralize power to destroy centralized power or something like that. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
Their commies are dumb. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Anarchist Handbook's a good place for anarchism, and at least kind of get you to wet your palate there, because you get them from all over the spectrum. Economics in One Lesson, excellent book. Highly recommend it for anybody that's interested in economics. Now, of course, if I didn't mention Human Action by Ludwig von Mises, then I would be I'd have to forfeit my card here. But
The Road to Serfdom by Hayek.
There you go.
F.A.
But that
Hayek.
being said, Human Action is a huge book. And it's a hard read.
Is it? Okay.
So I suggest then is Choice by Robert P. Murphy.
Okay.
Is essentially he takes that, puts some modern spin on it, and it's a little easier to read. Anything by Robert, his book in Chaos Theory is also good. Kind of touches on a lot of things. We're talking about a non-state legal framework and those kind of things.
I got one here. TP, if you have not read this, you need to read this. Thinking that you have probably read this. Let's see. The Law by Friedrich Hayek or Friedrich Bastiat.
Yes.
Yes. It's in a very short read. Have you read it, TV?
No, I have not.
It's a very short read.
Okay.
It's in early English, but I don't know. Chun, what do you think? I think it's to me, it's a staple. It's a must read.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. You can get them in like little pocket versions of them too.
Yeah, very short, But everything that you read in that, I mean, I didn't really find anything that didn't reason reason true.
Okay,
Reason true.
cool. All right, well, I will definitely check it out.
Wow, by
There's a
Frederick
few books here
Bastiat.
I'm going to have to check out. So,
And I guess one more since we talked about the revolution. Murray Rothbard, like I said, I had mentioned that he wrote a book about it, For a New Liberty.
I believe you mentioned that
it's
in the
a-
last episode too.
Yeah, that one is more or less like laying out a libertarian society and answering a bunch of questions about it.
Okay.
So that's a good one. And then Conceived in Liberty is his book about the
Yeah.
revolution. And it's a lot of many volume work, phenomenal read. A lot of, like I said, I had mentioned that one podcast about it, and he pulls a lot of his material
The
from
Dangerous History.
Right. So
Yeah.
he pulled a lot of his material from, the great Murray Rothbard in that book. So
Okay,
I would suggest
cool.
it if you're interested in it.
Chun, did you read Rothbard's Betrayal of the American Right?
No, I started reading The New Right by Michael Malice, and he references it a bunch
Okay.
in there. So,
Excellent.
but yeah,
Excellent
it's
book. I have
that's
read it. I have read it. Excellent book.
a lot of he wrote a bunch of articles along, like not necessarily along with the book, but after his failed paleo strategy, with trying to appeal to the redneck of the time, I guess in the early '90s, and how was it Buckley or that betrayed him, or like who am I thinking of? Am I mixing him up with
William H. Buckley?
Yeah.
I think
where-
he was
where-
one of the initial neroconservatives.
Yeah, so
Right?
essentially,
Interesting. He worked for the CIA too.
Yeah, right. So I think the
That's
idea
weird.
here was that Rothbard would champion the cultural right, where if they also then kind of looked at economics the way that he did, from a libertarian perspective, and to try to shrink the state, and then they just stabbed him in the back in the end.
Absolutely. And go ahead, sir.
Which in libertarian circles, that is the great criticism from a lot of libertarians of Murray Rothbard, is his embracing the paleos, the hard writers, right? But they failed to remember that in the 60s and 70s, he courted the leftists, the anti-war leftists, and they stabbed him in the back too. So it's just being
I
a
remember
libertarian
seeing
and
something about that
anarchist
on
is just
YouTube.
being fucked by everybody all the time. So
Yeah.
just the way it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're used